Um, Hello everyone. My name is OJ. I send greetings to you all in the precious name of our Lord Jesus Christ. I decided to make this video in response to something I believe is a very popular error propagated amongst many Christians regarding a particular verse which I think has been misconstrued. And the reason I've decided to give this attention is because lately I've heard so many Christians say that Peter was the rock on which Christ built his church. So I just want us to look at connect the verses in relation to this as the statement Jesus Christ made, and let us actually see if that's what Jesus was actually saying. Was Jesus really saying that Peter was a rock on which he built his church? Is that what Jesus was saying? So I would just like us to read the entire discourse and then probably see why a lot of Christians have come to that conclusion that Peter was the rock on which Christ built his church. So let's just read everything first of all, and then we'll go back to break it down to see what I believe Jesus was actually getting at here, so that we can have a better understanding of this rock in which Christ built his church. So what we're going to be discussing today is the rock on which Christ built his church. What was this rock Christ spoke about? So let us go to the chapter in question, which is Mark 16, and we'll be looking at we'll be reading the verses from 13. As the title says, Peter declares that Jesus is the Messiah. So let's just read everything, and then we'll go back to the verses one by one to just break them so we could follow the trail of thoughts gradually. So starting from verse 13, it says, when Jesus came to the region of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, "Who do people say the Son of Man is?" They replied, "Some say John the Baptist, others say Elijah, still others say Jeremiah, or one of the prophets." "But what about you?" he asked. "Who do you say I am?" Simon Peter answered, "You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God." And Jesus replied, "Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for this was not revealed to you by flesh and blood, but by my Father in heaven. And I tell you that you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not overcome it. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you bind on earth will be bound on heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven." Okay. So a lot of people have read these verses and have come to the conclusion that Peter was a rock on which Christ built his church. Now, one of the reasons I believe that many of us come to error in interpreting scriptures is that we don't look at the surrounding context of a statement that has been made. Okay, so many times we jump into that error of just lifting out one particular verse and running with it, interpreting that verse out of the surrounding context of the discourse. We need to look at the preceding verses. We also need to look at the succeeding verses to actually build some understanding around what the scriptures say regarding particular issues. So let's break it down again. Let's actually study this and go through those verses so that we can come to the right conclusion by the grace of God, God willing, and as his Spirit will give grace to teach. I pray that he will also impart this understanding to his people as well. So let's go back to the verses and let's see what was going on here. Okay, so let's start from the very beginning. Now, Jesus started this discourse by asking the question, the very important question. From verse 13, it says again, when Jesus came to the region of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, "Who do people say the Son of Man is?" Now, The reason why this is very, very important is because there's a connection between that rock and even the very beginning of this statement. There is a connection which many people do not see. Who do people say the Son of Man is? Okay. And they replied, some say John the Baptist, others say Elijah, and still others Jeremiah or one of the prophets. Now watch this very carefully here. Jesus Christ is trying to establish the hearsays. Okay, what do people say about the Son of Man? What do you know about the hearsays? Now this is what people say. They say you're Jeremiah, some say you're Elijah, some say you're the prophet risen from the dead, or you're that prophet, or blah blah blah. Okay, so there was a reason why he started the conversation that way. He was going somewhere with this conversation. So we need to follow the trail. And then he turns it over. Now he personalizes it. Now we've heard about the hearsay. We've heard about what others think about me. We've heard about the propaganda. Now what I want to know is your own testimony. Okay? Now, but what about you? He asked. That's verse 15 now. Who do you say I am? And then Simon answered, you are the Messiah, the Son of the living God. Okay. Now we've seen that Jesus Christ established the hearsays. Who do people say I am? They said this, they said this. But now he personalizes it again and says, who do you? What is your own testimony about me? We've heard about what other people say. What do you say? And then Peter answered and said, you are the Messiah, the Son of the living God. And then Jesus replied. Now this is key to understanding what that rock is. Jesus replied, blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah. Now follow this. This is key here. For this was not revealed to you by flesh and blood, but by Father in heaven. Now, even if you stop here, if we stop here for a moment, we'll begin to see the rock in which he built his church. Now, the confusing bit, what I believe confuses many Christians, is when he goes on to say in verse 18, and I tell you that you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church. You see, the issue here is that Christians have completely discounted the preceding verses, and which should give context to what Jesus was trying to say here, what he was saying and establishing, and they've just latched on to verse 18 that says, and I tell you that you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not overcome it. So they conclude that Peter was the rock. No. So what was this rock, since it wasn't Peter? Was Jesus building his church on a fallible man? Okay, now that Peter is going to be with the Lord, how is the church built on Peter? It doesn't really make sense. Peter, who was found with hypocrisy, and Paul had to correct him at the time. So how would Christ build his church on a fallible man? So Christ could not have built his church on Peter, a fallible man. He would have built his church something more eternal, more everlasting, and something that will stand the test of time. So if we go back again, we'll begin to see what exactly this rock is. So he starts by saying, who do men say I am? And we've had the testimony of the hearsays. Now he personalizes it to say, who do you say I am? And Peter rightly confesses, you are the Messiah, the Son of the living God. And then Jesus goes on to commend him for that. But in doing so, he noted, he said, the reason why you're blessed is because you did not get this from the hearsays. Them say they said this, they said that, and that's what a lot of Christians do today. They practice so many things because the pastor said this brother said this respectable person said this. But Jesus is saying that Peter is blessed because he did not hear any of these from these hearsays, this flesh and blood. They did not tell you, they did not give you this testimony, but you have learned this directly from my Father in heaven, and on this rock I will build my church. Okay, so you see the whole connection here. The church was built on the rock of revelation, where believers will receive truth from the Father directly, where they would not hear the truth or receive knowledge from the hearsays, okay, that can easily be shaken by the gates of hell. Because someone comes to tell you something one day, and well, another superior person who you hold in higher regard comes to tell you the same thing, and then you could easily be swayed and say, oh well, I don't know, this person is better than this person, he has more knowledge than this. So you're going to be tossed about by every wind of doctrine. But see what Christ is saying here, flesh and blood did not reveal this. The things my Father revealed to you, those things which are cemented in your heart, from those things which my Father will reveal to his children, the gates of hell can never overcome that, can never prevail against it. It is this rock. This is the foundation. In other words, flesh and blood has not revealed this truth to you, and it is based on this principle I will build my church. On this rock, on this basis of personal revelation from the Father in heaven, I will build my church, and the gates of hell will not prevail against it. Now, the reference to Peter is what throws a lot of Christians off, I believe, in verse 18, where it says, and I tell you, you are Peter, and on this rock I'll build my church. So they feel that Jesus is saying that, you're Peter, and on this rock I'll build my church. But notice that Jesus wasn't saying, I tell you, you are Peter, on you I'll build my church. What Jesus was simply doing here was comparing the Peter, his name, meaning rock or little stone, to the foundation on which he will build his church. So it's like saying, Peter, you are blessed because flesh and blood hasn't revealed this truth to you. Just as your name is Peter and it represents rock, likewise on this foundation, this bedrock, this principle on which flesh and blood will not reveal things to my children, where they will not learn things from the hearsays, but they will learn from the Father in heaven. It's on this basis, on this principle, on this rock I'll build my church. So there we have it. So when Jesus Christ speaks about the rock on which the church will be built, the rock wasn't built on Peter. Peter was not the rock. He was just a symbol of that rock. Flesh and blood will not reveal things to God's children, but the Father in heaven. And it's on that principle, so the basis of that revelation, that principle, the foundation, on this rock, on the rock of revelation from my Father in heaven, I will build my church, and the gates of hell will not prevail against it. So I just wanted to share my thoughts on that, on this issue, which I believe has been misconstrued by a lot of Christians, and I hope and trust that this will be a blessing to God's people. If you've been blessed by this, please could like the video, subscribe, share the video, and I'll be doing more videos with time to come by God's grace. Have a blessed day. Bye-bye.